U.S. Capital History and Events Washington, D.C., formerly the District of Columbia and also known as D.C. or just Washington, is the capital city of the United States. It is located on the east bank of the Potomac River, which forms its southwestern and southern border with Virginia, and shares a land border with Maryland on its remaining sides. The city was named for George Washington, the first President of the United States and a founding father, and the federal district is named after Columbia, a female personification of the nation. As the seat of the U.S. federal government and several international organizations, the city is an important world political capital. It is one of the most visited cities in the U.S., seeing over 20 million visitors in 2016. The U.S. Constitution provides for a federal district under the exclusive jurisdiction of Congress. The district is therefore not a part of any U.S. state, nor is it one itself. The signing of the Residence Act on July 16, 1790, approved the creation of a capital district located along the Potomac River near the country's east coast. The city of Washington was founded in 1791 to serve as the national capital, and Congress held its first session there in 1800. In 1801, the territory, formerly part of Maryland and Virginia, including the settlements of Georgetown and Alexandria, officially became recognized as the federal district. In 1846, Congress returned the land originally ceded by Virginia, including the city of Alexandria. In 1871, it created a single municipal government for the remaining portion of the district. There have been efforts to make the city into a state since the 1880s, a movement that has gained momentum in recent years, and a statehood bill passed the House of Representatives in 2021. The city is divided into quadrants centered on the Capitol building, and there are as many as 131 neighborhoods. According to the 2020 census, it has a population of 689,545, which makes it the 20th most populous city in the U.S. and gives it a population larger than that of two U.S. states, Wyoming and Vermont. Commuters from the surrounding Maryland and Virginia suburbs raise the city's daytime population to more than 1 million during the workweek. Washington's metropolitan area, the country's sixth largest, including parts of Maryland, Virginia and West Virginia, had a 2019 estimated population of 6.3 million residents. The three branches of the U.S. federal government are centered in the district: Congress, legislative, the President, executive, and the Supreme Court, judicial. Washington is home to many national monuments and museums, primarily situated on or around the National Mall. The city hosts 177 foreign embassies as well as the headquarters of many international organizations, trade unions, non-profits, lobbying groups, and professional associations, including the World Bank Group, the International Monetary Fund, the Organization of American States, the AARP, the National Geographic Society, the Human Rights Campaign, the International Finance Corporation, and the American Red Cross. A locally elected mayor and a 13-member council have governed the district since 1973. Congress maintains supreme authority over the city and may overturn local laws. D.C. residents elect a non-voting, at-large congressional delegate to the House of Representatives. But the district has no representation in the Senate. District voters choose 3 presidential electors in accordance with the 23rd Amendment to the United States Constitution, ratified in 1961. History: various tribes of the Algonquin-speaking Piscataway people, also known as the Conoy, inhabited the lands around the Potomac River when Europeans first visited the area in the early 17th century. One group known as the Nacotchtank, also called the Nacostines by Catholic missionaries, maintained settlements around the Anacostia River within the present-day District of Columbia. Conflicts with European colonists and neighboring tribes forced the relocation of the Piscataway people, some of whom established a new settlement in 1699 near Point of Rocks, Maryland. In his Federalist No. 43, published January 23, 1788, James Madison argued that the new federal government would need authority over a national capital to provide for its own maintenance and safety. 5 years earlier, a band of unpaid soldiers had besieged Congress while its members were meeting in Philadelphia. Known as the Pennsylvania Mutiny of 1783. The event emphasized the need for the national government not to rely on any state for its own security. Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution permits the establishment of a district, not exceeding 10 miles square, as may, by cession of particular states, and the acceptance of Congress, become the seat of the government of the United States. However, the Constitution does not specify a location for the capital. In what is now known as the Compromise of 1790, Madison, Alexander Hamilton, and Thomas Jefferson agreed that the federal government would pay each state's remaining Revolutionary War debts in exchange for establishing the new national capital in the southern United States. Foundation. On July 9, 1790, Congress passed the Residence Act, which approved the creation of a national capital on the Potomac River. The exact location was to be selected by President George Washington, who signed the bill into law on July 16. Formed from land donated by the states of Maryland and Virginia. The initial shape of the federal district was a square measuring 10 miles, 16 kilometers, on each side, totaling 100 square miles, 259 square kilometers. 2 pre-existing settlements were included in the territory. The port of Georgetown, Maryland, founded in 1751, and the city of Alexandria, Virginia, founded in 1749. During 1791–92, a team under Andrew Ellicott, including Ellicott's brothers Joseph and Benjamin and African-American astronomer Benjamin Banneker, surveyed the borders of the federal district and placed boundary stones at every mile point. Many of the stones are still standing. A new federal city was then constructed on the north bank of the Potomac, to the east of Georgetown. On September 9, 1791, the 3 commissioners overseeing the capital's construction named the city in honor of President Washington. The same day, the federal district was named Columbia, a feminine form of Columbus, which was a poetic name for the United States commonly in use at that time. Congress held its first session there on November 17, 1800. Congress passed the District of Columbia Organic Act of 1801, which officially organized the district and placed the entire territory under the exclusive control of the federal government. Further, the unincorporated area within the district was organized into 2 counties, the County of Washington to the east of the Potomac and the County of Alexandria to the west. After the passage of this act, citizens living in the district were no longer considered residents of Maryland or Virginia, which therefore ended their representation in Congress, burning during the War of 1812 on August 24–25, 1814, in a raid known as the Burning of Washington. British forces invaded the capital during the War of 1812. The Capitol, Treasury, and White House were burned and gutted during the attack. Most government buildings were repaired quickly. However, the Capitol was largely under construction at the time and was not completed in its current form until 1868. Retrocession and the Civil War in the 1830s. The district's southern territory of Alexandria went into economic decline partly due to neglect by Congress. The city of Alexandria was a major market in the American slave trade, and pro-slavery residents feared that abolitionists in Congress would end slavery in the district, further depressing the economy. Alexandria's citizens petitioned Virginia to take back the land it had donated to form the district, through a process known as retrocession. The Virginia General Assembly voted in February 1846 to accept the return of Alexandria. On July 9, 1846, Congress agreed to return all the territory that Virginia had ceded. Therefore, the district's area consists only of the portion originally donated by Maryland. Confirming the fears of pro-slavery Alexandrians, the Compromise of 1850 outlawed the slave trade in the district. Although not slavery itself, the outbreak of the American Civil War in 1861 led to the expansion of the federal government and notable growth in the district's population, including a large influx of freed slaves. President Abraham Lincoln signed the Compensated Emancipation Act in 1862, which ended slavery in the District of Columbia and freed about 3,100 enslaved persons. 9 months prior to the Emancipation Proclamation, in 1868, Congress granted the district's African American male residents the right to vote in municipal elections. Growth and redevelopment by 1870. The district's population had grown 75% from the previous census to nearly 132,000 residents. Despite the city's growth, Washington still had dirt roads and lacked basic sanitation. Some members of Congress suggested moving the capital further west, but President Ulysses S. Grant refused to consider such a proposal. Congress passed the Organic Act of 1871, which repealed the individual charters of the cities of Washington and Georgetown, and created a new territorial government for the whole District of Columbia. President Grant appointed Alexander Roby Shepherd to the position of governor in 1873. Shepherd authorized large-scale projects that greatly modernized the city of Washington, but ultimately bankrupted the district government. In 1874, Congress replaced the territorial government with an appointed 3-member board of commissioners. The city's first motorized streetcars began service in 1888. They generated growth in areas of the district beyond the city of Washington's original boundaries. Washington's urban plan was expanded throughout the district in the following decades. Georgetown's street grid and other administrative details were formally merged to those of the legal city of Washington in 1895. However, the city had poor housing conditions and strained public works. The district was the first city in the nation to undergo urban renewal projects as part of the City Beautiful movement in the early 1900s. Increased federal spending as a result of the New Deal in the 1930s led to the construction of new government buildings, memorials, and museums in the district. Though the chairman of the House Subcommittee on District Appropriations, Ross A. Collins from Mississippi, justified cuts to funds for welfare and education for local residents, saying that, "My constituents wouldn't stand for spending money on niggers." World War II further increased government activity, adding to the number of federal employees in the capital. By 1950, the district's population reached its peak of 802,178 residents. Civil Rights and Home Rule era. The 23rd Amendment to the United States Constitution was ratified in 1961, granting the district 3 votes in the Electoral College for the election of president and vice president, but still no voting representation in Congress. After the assassination of civil rights leader Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., on April 4, 1968, riots broke out in the district, primarily in the U Street, 14th Street, 7th Street, and H Street corridors, centers of black residential and commercial areas. The riots raged for 3 days until more than 13,600 federal troops and D.C. Army National Guardsmen stopped the violence. Many stores and other buildings were burned. Rebuilding was not completed until the late 1990s. In 1973, Congress enacted the District of Columbia Home Rule Act, providing for an elected mayor and 13-member council for the district. 53. In 1975, Walter Washington became the first elected and first black mayor of the district.